Today, the CDC estimates that nearly 40% of all births are to unmarried women. But when Janet Sherland was born in the 1950s, few things were more scandalous than having a baby out of wedlock. To save their social standing, many of these women fled to charity homes to hide their pregnancy. After giving birth, they'd return to their hometowns and their babies were forever kept a secret behind the ironclad contract of a closed adoption. As Sherland sees it, the biological and adoptive parents were the only two parties anyone worried about.
No one was thinking about not an infant, not a helpless infant, but the individual that had been created that was being passed between them, who would grow up to be a full-grown, independent adult like myself. And what were our needs? Our needs were not to be separated from our authentic identity. And for those of us born in the baby scoop era of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, not to have that hidden by law from us, and in 40 states still hidden from us.
But it wasn't always this way. When the first U.S. adoption law was passed in 1851, it prioritized the child over the parent's interests. Information was easy to find, and it wasn't uncommon for birth and adoptive parents to meet. In 1917, Minnesota was the first to introduce confidential adoption records, and most of the other states followed soon after. Dr. David Brodzinski, a research and project consultant for the National Center on Adoption and Permanency, believes that closed adoptions have created a major problem.
It was based first and foremost on this belief that in closing the records, it will protect the privacy of birth parents, first and foremost, and secondarily, the privacy of adoptive family. Well, birth parents, we know, some birth parents want privacy, of course, but the majority of them do not.
In my era, certainly an agency decided what family I went to, who was next on the list. And then I'm just assigned a name and an identity. And I was a helpless child. I had no say in being given away and asked to live a false life.
Sherland felt the grief and pain of that decision every day. She recounts the trauma it caused in her new memoir, Abandoned at Birth, Searching for the Arms That Once Held Me. As Brodzinski mentioned in last week's segment, many adoptees experience great loss through the process, one of which being a sense of one's place in their family line.
We are the legacy of our parents who are the legacy of their parents. We can trace back our biology, our family roots, if you will, going back generations. And yet adoptees more often than not cannot do that. And there is, for many, there is the loss of racial, cultural, linguistic heritage.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reports that as rates of adoptions increase, the growth of transracial adoptions have outpaced same-race adoptions. The adoptive family has to do a lot of legwork to help the child connect with their racial heritage and culture. But Brodzinski says that even then, it's not always enough to fill the gap.
They can't do the same job that, say, an African-American family can do with their African-American child because the adoptive parents haven't walked in the shoes of the African-American parents. They don't know how really to handle directly the kind of racial prejudice, the bias that minority members in our society routinely experience, and how you can kind of intellectually deal with this issue with your child, but on a personal and emotional level, on a lived experience level, they don't have it.
Which contributes to the overall loss felt by adoptees, often described as a big black hole or an amputation. When the member of a family dies, other relatives are there to share memories and stories. But when adoptees are completely cut off from their biological family, they have no guidance of where certain attributes come from, like hair color or personality. And their attempts to find out are often met with resistance.
In some states, the records are open. Most states, they're not. There may be resistance on the part of adoptive parents who don't feel that that's important. What's really important, honey, is, that we love you. And, we take good care of you. We're your forever family. Well, those things are true, but they are rejecting, if you will, the child's usually, it can be a child, but their teenager or their adult child's need to know more about where they came from. So that loss is pervasive. And because it's not well recognized or not supported or minimized in some way, where the adoptee may get the message of, from the parents, don't think about that. It's not that important.
Brodzinski says this experience is called disenfranchised grief, meaning that a person's pain isn't accepted. which often creates a setback in the healing process. While Sherlin's family was always open about the process, especially since all 4 siblings were adopted, she says there was always a disconnect. With so many unanswered questions, they never felt like a true family.
I don't think a day ever went by that I didn't wonder, where did I come from? Why do I look like this? Who am I really? And I just ran out of options. I had no information whatsoever.
As an adult, Sherlin discovered that her adoption agency had a family search service on their website. It took years before she was able to make contact with anyone of biological relation. But when that day came, Sherlin says it was like all her pieces fell into place.
One of the things I really learned from meeting my biological family, both sides of it, is that how much of us as human beings is cellular and chemical and biological, that I swear our cells recognize each other and go back through generations. And the minute I met my birth father, and I couldn't have answered 2 questions about him. I literally knew just nothing about this man. The minute I looked into his eyes and he looked into my eyes and said, "You're Janet," that big black hole filled up.
Sherlin's father had no idea she existed until being contacted and welcomed her with love and joy. Sadly, her birth mother was more difficult. She didn't want her current family knowing she'd had a baby out of wedlock and told Sherlin to stop contacting her. Thankfully, Sherlin's half-siblings on that side reached out and were able to fill the remaining parts Sherlin felt she'd been missing.
All my siblings and my nieces and my nephews on that side talk about how much I looked like her and talked like her and walked like her and wore the same colors as her and wore the same styles as her. And it was just eerie for them to see me because I was such an embodiment of her.
One pushback that comes up when thinking about searching for your biological family is the question of, well, what if it's bad? Sherlin, who's experienced both sides of the spectrum, says that knowing the good and the bad is a necessary part of knowing all the parts of you.
And so meeting my birth mother, there were traits that she had maybe in excess that whenever I saw them in myself and didn't like them, I could just say, oh, that's just a fluke, or that's just... When I saw them as a character trait of my birth mother, I'd go, oh my God, that's in me. So don't let that take over. So it's like, you need that too. You need to see the worst sides of you and the best sides. You need to see all of you in order to better understand yourself and to both encourage the best in yourself and to watch yourself when you're going in a direction that you don't want to go in. So I'd say you can't feel whole until you have all the pieces, and not all the pieces are pretty, but they're really important.
Since the child is the party most affected by adoption, Sherlin believes we need to put them first in the process. That means unsealing records and keeping some form of communication open so that they can grow up knowing all parts of their identity. Sherlin's book, Abandoned at Birth, is available now wherever books are sold. You can find more information about Dr. David Brodzinski, Janet Sherlund, and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Greg Johnson.